welcome everyone. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join me on a Friday afternoon. My name is Marla Helly. I will be your trainer for our Developing Clinical Study Budgets for Sponsors. A little bit about myself. I started out actually as a research nurse years ago and worked both as a site director as well for a large private academic practice, and also I have worked as a CRA and project manager for sponsor and CROs. So I am familiar about the budget that is put into place from both sides, and perhaps I can give you a couple tips or tricks from the sponsor side, some of the questions that you probably always wanted to ask someone that worked at a sponsor, but maybe were afraid they wouldn't tell you. And so I really want to make sure that we look at all sides, because at the end of the day, we know that our goal is really to get a fair pay for our investigational sites. And why I say that is that if we're not paid fairly, I know that sites aren't going to do the work, because I've seen this happen before, where a site discovers that we're actually losing money by doing this clinical trial, and perhaps they have stopped enrolling additional subjects. So really, we want to have this balance act to ensure that everyone is able to have success in the project, in the sense that we are being paid fairly, but also being able to enroll subjects in the study. And that's something that the sponsors really want to look at, but not just enrolling a subject, but giving us quality data and quality subjects. Our learning objectives today, well, here's the focus. We're going to focus on three aspects in our training. First, we're going to discuss fair market value and why fair market value is important in clinical research. We're going to look at some key questions and terms that need to be addressed at the investigational site before we actually develop the budget. And then we're going to look at some tools and techniques that can help you in the development of a budget. And I'm going to show you what sponsors do and then what sites typically get from a sponsor. And I'll also share with you some of the things that I have learned working with various sponsors. Everyone does things a little bit different, but what I have found, there's really some kind of norms that we have in how we present a budget to an investigational site. You also received handouts from Barb Potter in an email, so you have 4 handouts. And we're going to look at a couple of these. We won't spend too much time on these during the course because we have only 2 hours, and I want to get through this to ensure that we cover everything. And then I'll say you can reference these. And they're pretty easy to look at what the tools are to help you. So with that, let's get started and look at fair market value. So before we get started, let's take a moment to have you just chat your thoughts on fair market value. Have you heard this term before? So you can indicate yes or no. And how does this impact trial budgets? If you are familiar with this, share and let me know. I always try to look at what your current knowledge is and then where I can fill in the gap if there's anything that's missing. So I'll take one moment here just to give you an opportunity to chat. So I have one person saying I've heard of it, but not sure how it actually is identified. Well, I appreciate that you are being honest with us, and that's why you're here. And somebody else said same. Exactly. So we'll see if anybody else has any other thoughts that are going to come through. And I'm going to bring this slide up. And what fair market value essentially is that we have to pay fairly, but not overpay in research, because we're not wanting to potentially introduce bias into our studies. So essentially, I need to look at what is the fair price in which the work that an investigational site would do is reasonable. Because what I don't want to do is give you, say, this inflated budget, and there is this potential then you may actually bring in some bias towards how the research is done. And also, too, we have to report our payments that we make to investigational sites, and I'll talk about this as well. So this is something that sponsors also have to do. So there is reporting as well. So it really is making sure that we have fair pay for the work that we're going to have done. Now, how do we do this? Well, we can look at certain things. I'm going to talk about this in our budget and how we plan from a sponsor point of view.